Hello everyone, we're going to be looking at the Environmental Science Section 5.2 Species Interactions Study Guide. And I want to go through and actually go ahead and give you the answers to these things, so it might be a good idea to follow along and see what you can come up with. And yeah, get this assignment done, right? Okay, so the first thing we're going to do in this study guide is we have a, oh, hold on here. Whoa, I didn't mean to do that. We have a whole bunch of vocabulary terms that we're going to be looking at. The first one is this term right here. It's called niche. Okay, if I can write. It's called niche. And sometimes you'll hear people call it a niche or a niche. Either way. Well, what is a niche or a niche? Well, let me go ahead and pull this back out here so I can write a little bit better. I'm going to look at your book. And by the way, I have on a separate screen, I have your book open, okay? And so I'm using the book, and then I also have this screen. I'm not able to kind of demonstrate that for you right now because on my iPad it gets really complex when I try to do that, and I don't want to lose the recording. So basically, I have another screen open that has the book on it. And then I have this open on my iPad so you can see the actual answers, okay? So anyway, what I would recommend is that you have the book open with you while you're doing this assignment, and then that way it can help as well. So what is a niche or a niche? Well, it is an organism's, go ahead and write this in here, an organism's use of resources and its functional role, in an environment, in its environment. Okay, if I write environment, you guys would be fine with that, right? What if I go with a finer point? Maybe that'll help. Try to do that. So how am I going to remember this? Well, have you guys ever heard the term find your niche? Okay, find your niche. We use that a lot of times when we're talking to people about what they're doing and with their life and what their role is in society. So whatever your niche is. So for example, mine, what's my niche? Well, I teach. I'm a high school teacher. That's my niche. That's what I'm good at. That's what I do. And I found it, and now that's my function in society, right? Okay. What's your niche? What are you good at? What is your thing that's going to be your thing? And that's what you need to be thinking about when you think about the word niche, okay, or niche. And basically anywhere else besides Indiana, they call it a niche. Here in Indiana, a lot of times, Kentucky area, we call it a niche. So just know that you can hear it both ways. Okay, so the next thing is tolerance. And this idea of tolerance basically is saying the ability to survive and reproduce, under changing environmental conditions. So in other words, how flexible are you? Okay, are you able to tolerate extreme situations, or do you fall apart? Okay, do you turn into a bowl of jello or something when anything stressful starts to happen? Well, that's what we're talking about when we say tolerance. And there are some creatures in the wild that are really tolerant, like they can put up with anything. And then there are other creatures that flat out, like if you do anything to them that's weird or different, then they just die. And an example of that, when I moved from my old classroom to the one I'm in now, I moved all these tanks and all these fish, and I had one species of fish. They were called bala sharks. And the minute I brought them over to this new room, and I put them in their new tank with their new water, they swam around, and then the next thing I know, all three of them were dead. Like, I could watch them just like fall apart, and they just died, and there was nothing I could do about it. And there was really nothing that I changed other than I had to completely, empty their tank, and I rearranged all the rocks and those kinds of things when I put their tank back together. And the minute that happened, like they just exploded. They couldn't take it. And so they had zero tolerance for anything like that. Okay, so the next one is called resonant or resource partitioning. So I'm looking in your book. I'm going to try to find that definition, and I'm finding that definition on page 135 in your book. And resource partitioning, I'm going to read the paragraph that goes with it. It says, over time, competing species may evolve to occupy only their realized niches or niches. In this way, they adapt to competition by using slightly different resources or their shared resources in different ways. If two bird species eat the same type of seeds, for example, one might specialize in the larger ones and the other specialize in the smaller ones. Or one bird may become more active in the morning and the other more active in the evening. This process is called resource partitioning because the species partition or divide the resource they use in common by specializing in different ways. Okay, so resource partitioning, if we could define it, it's going to be the process of multiple species sharing the same resource. Okay, so think about a lake for a minute. You know, if you have fish in a lake, well, some fish are going to swim over near the weeds, while others are going to swim in the wide open water. Some are going to be at the bottom of the lake, some are going to be at the top of the lake, but they're all sharing that same resource, which is the lake, right? So I'll put that down as my example. I'll put down fish sharing a lake. And depending on which species you're talking about, you know, they're going to try to spread themselves out as much as they can. And so that, you know, they can kind of keep the peace, I guess, and not step on anyone else's toes. So the next thing we're going to look at is what's called predation. And predation is on page 136 in your book. And the paragraph that goes along with it says, every living thing needs food, and for many animals that means eating other living organisms. Predation is the process by which an individual of one species, a predator, hunts, captures, kills, and consumes an individual of another species, the prey. Interactions between predators and prey influence community structure by helping determine the relative numbers of predators and prey. Okay, so what is predation? Predation is the hunting by predators, predators, to consume prey. And there is a real big connection between predators and their prey, back and forth, okay? And we're actually going to watch a film on this later on, where we're going to look at wolves in Yellowstone, okay? So I'll just put down wolves in Yellowstone. And what happens when you take the wolves away? And we did that, you know, we took all the wolves away because we heard all the stories, right? Goldilocks and the three bears, and then we had, you know, Red Riding Hood and the wolf, all this stuff. We have all these stories about wolves and how terrible they are, and we're told that they're terrible from a young age. Well, people have hunted wolves almost to the point where they're just very hard to find even on the planet anymore. And when we did that, when we took the predator away, it actually caused all kinds of problems that we never thought were going to happen. And so we've now since then started to realize maybe we should, maybe we should put wolves back, put that back. And that's what we started doing, and we've noticed a massive change for the good by putting those predators back into an environment. So we're going to watch a video on that this week, and you guys will get to see how this predation thing actually works. The next one is coevolution. And so I'm going to read a paragraph in your book on page, what is this? Page 137 on coevolution. It says some predator-prey relationships are examples of coevolution. Coevolution is the process by which two species evolve in response to changes in each other. A change in one species, therefore, is usually followed by a change in the other. A newt, for example, might evolve toxins that kill animals that prey on it. Some predators, however, might evolve immunity to the toxins. Then, in turn, the newts evolve even stronger toxins. And so it turns into this, escalation, almost like Cold War or something. And we do see a lot of that in nature. So what is coevolution? It's when two species evolve and adapt in response to each other. Okay, so when two species evolve and adapt in response to each other, that's coevolution. And the example here is wicked, poisonous newts. And you can find some YouTube videos on this, but oh my gosh, there's some newts that are like unbelievably dangerous now because they're responding to the predators, and they want to make sure that they're so poisonous that their predators can't catch and eat them. And there's a video out there, and it's called Evolution's Arms Race. Okay, so you can find this movie if you want. It's called Evolution's Arms Race, I believe. And it's just talking about how these creatures are they just ramp themselves up to the point where they're so dangerous and toxic. And it's just because they've got predators that are trying to eat them all the time. And then the predators get immune to their poison, and it just kind of goes on and on. It's kind of crazy. So the next one, my dogs and cats are going crazy on me right now. Everybody calm down. Everybody calm down. Quit it. Yeah, so the next one is parasitism. We need to talk about that. Parasitism is a relationship in which one organism, the parasite, depends on the other, which is called the host, for nourishment or some other benefit. In the process, the host is going to be harmed in that situation. Okay, so for parasitism, you would say the parasite takes something from its host, and that equals harming host. Okay, and one of the big ones for humans is, well, not necessarily around here, but we have tapeworms, right? That's kind of one of the classic ones. When you think about a tapeworm, it lives inside an animal's intestines, and as the animal eats food, that tapeworm is literally going to steal the food from the animal before that food is able to enter into the animal's body as a nutrient. And it does it by living right where the nutrients are actually absorbed for the first time. So it's kind of like being at the front of the lunch line, and stealing everybody's food before it actually gets on someone else's tray. Well, how does it hurt a host? It hurts the host because the host ends up becoming malnourished. And a host can eat all kinds of food, just eat like a pig, but in the process never stop starving. Okay, so it's kind of weird how that works. It's not a good thing. Okay, so the next word that we're looking at is called symbiosis. And symbiosis is another term for where you have two animals working together or living together. And I'm going to put down the definition here. It says it is a long-lasting, physically close relationship in which at least one organism benefits. So we're going to put down long-lasting, relationship, or let's see, physically close, relationship, in which at least one species benefits. Okay, so we're not sure which one's going to benefit. If only one benefits, then we know we're talking about either mutualism or parasitism. If both are, or commensalism or parasitism, sorry. If both are going to benefit, then we have something called mutualism, okay? So if I could maybe write this over at the side, and I think I've done this before, but I'm gonna do it again. So let's say we have this umbrella, okay? Here's my umbrella, and I'm gonna say this umbrella is symbiosis umbrella. And then underneath this umbrella, we're going to have, here's my hook, okay? There it is. Well, underneath here, we're going to have three different terms. One is going to be called mutualism. Okay, so we have mutualism. Over here, we have one, and it's going to be called commensalism. That's a big word. C-O-M-M-E-N-S-A-L-I-S-M. Try to squeeze that in there if I can. Commensalism. And then we have another one. We'll hang off of this one, and it's going to be called parasitism. Okay, so in parasitism, one species, one species is hurt. Okay, other is helped. Okay, in commensalism, both species are whatever. Okay, and then in mutualism, both species benefit. Okay, so symbiosis is a bigger term that goes for lots of, or it goes for three different types of symbiotic relationships. And just to kind of go through this again, mutualism is when both things are going to benefit, okay? So in this case, both benefit. We'll put that down. Both benefit. In commensalism, both are just kind of with each other, okay? They're just kind of together. So I'm going to read the book definition. It says commensalism describes a relationship in which one species benefits and the other is unaffected. So one benefits and one is whatever. Okay? So one is whatever. And then, of course, when we go back to the one that we were just doing in the back, in parasitism, back here, one benefits and the other one gets hurt. Okay, so that's something to look at. We have another term here that I have to go back and try to find. Let's see, herbivory. There it is. Herbivory is found on page 138 in your book. And I'm going to read the paragraph. It says, the interaction in which an animal feeds on a plant is called herbivory. Insects that feed on plants are the most common type of herbivore. In most cases, herbivory does not kill a plant directly, but may affect its growth and reproduction. Because of natural selection, plants have evolved a wide array of defenses against the animals that feed on them. Many plants produce chemicals that are toxic or distasteful to herbivores. Others have thorns, spines, or irritating hairs. In response, herbivores may evolve ways to overcome these defenses. And we already know what that term is, don't we?